now going to go into the Shaderlight light placement tool, and under my options here, and we're going to look at these other lights later, but there's a skylight portal. Now the skylight portal is basically like a sign for the light photons of instructions where to go in the scene. So these are used to put over openings, windows and doors, to say that we want light shining through them. So if I go to the outside of my scene here, and I'm going to put a skylight portal on the outside of this window, and it's simply by drawing just a rectangle after choosing the skylight portal tool. And we can see in the middle there's an orange line pointing into the room. That's just the direction of the skylight portal. Now a skylight portal needs to be tight around a window or a door. We don't want to leave a gap like that, as the light would then escape and we'd be wasting the light energy. So you want to make it nice and tight against the window there. So this then brings up the light icon there, and in the middle there's just this semicircle effect, which just means that this is our light portal and that's the direction that it's facing, but that doesn't render. Okay, so I'm going to spin the building round, and I'm just going to put a light portal on this other exterior window here, and again just making sure that's that airtight against the frame as well. And now if I go back inside to my interior scene, we can see it looks completely different now. The light portal is taking the lighting information from the HDR. So, and as we said, the HDR contains the sun position, so we're actually getting the sun shining in through the window at this position. Now that's a pretty good effect, but we haven't quite got there just yet. The shadows that we've got in the areas here, they're a little bit too dark. And the reason for this can be seen if I bring up my render settings here. Our scene is currently set up to render as an exterior. Now, if I set this to an interior, this turns on global illumination. Now, after a minute or two to calculate, or a second or two to calculate, this will calculate the global illumination. And what global illumination then does is it bounces the light off the walls around the rooms. So we get less dark areas appearing, and we get a much warmer feel to our scene. So now I've got global illumination turned on. This is now bouncing around the room, and it just gives that different effect, and it looks much more realistic. What we can also do, we mentioned earlier about rotating our HDR. Now if I spin this round to the other side, this will recalculate the position of the HDR, and now our sunlight is shining in through the window on the other side. So we really are rotating the environment around the outside. And there we go. I mean, I'm much happier with that, and we can start to see the bump effect on the bricks appearing at the back there. Now you can see that using global illumination does have an effect on render times, but it's a very, very good way of creating a realistic interior render very quickly. So this would simply take sort of 5-10 minutes to render, and we would have quite a realistic scene from this one. Okay, so we've now looked at exterior and interior daytime, and at the moment all we've simply used is the portal light. So let's look at nighttime options, and then we can look at some more lighting. So I'm going back to exterior light because we're going to be going outside again. Okay, so we go back to our original view here. We can see that we're still set up for our daylight scene. Now I'm going to go into our Shaderlight render settings here, and in my lighting option, instead of our golf course evening here, I'm going to choose a custom lighting option, and I'm going to browse in here, and I've set up a JPEG image here that's just a very dark blue. Now we're going to see this affect our scene here, and then our render renders that blue. Now for my background here, I'm going to choose a different custom background, and I'm going to choose this nighttime scene of the tree here and those dark bushes. So I've selected my nighttime settings here. Now we can see that our image is certainly not looking how we would want it to for a nighttime image. And the reason for this is in SketchUp, in Shaderlight we have an auto exposure. setting. Now this is very similar to an auto exposure on your camera. What it's trying to do is it's trying to expose to make the render look nice and bright in daytime. So what we can do, we can actually manually change this. So if I just choose a -5 there, that makes this image much darker. And then I choose -2 for my background as well. And we've got a much darker background. Or I could tone that right down so that we've got virtually nighttime. So you can see with the exposure controls and the background brightness, we can get the effects that we're after. We're not limited, or we're not having to go searching for the settings. So I'm just going to zoom into my my image here, and so we can see our house here rendering sort of an evening image now. So that's sort of quite a nice render with that evening effect. So what I want to do with this, I now want to make it look like there's a bit of life going on in the house here. So I'm just going to update my scene there. So we come back to this image. And what I'm going to do, if I go back inside to our office, and again, this is what we would expect to see. This is what we saw earlier with just the nighttime out of the window. And in my lighting options here, I'm going to choose a point light. Now, a point light is an infinitely small point of light that emits light in all directions, and it's a very good way of recreating a light bulb. So if I just put a point light on the end of this line here, which is just simulate like a light fixture, and we've now got our room that just looks like it's got a light bulb on here. Now, our room is underexposed, and the reason for this is in our manual exposure settings, we've told our exposure that it's at a lower level, so you know, this is exactly what it should be doing. Now the intensity of the light bulb there is 125 candela. This is roughly the same as a 100-watt tungsten light bulb. So if we go back outside to our scene, we can now see that we've got a light on in our office here, and that's shining onto the bricks of the wall there. So it's quite a nice effect from that upper building there, upper room. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to one of my other scene tabs here. And in the lounge down here, we've got a TV on a cabinet. And I'm going to go into my Shaderlight light editor again. And this time I'm going to put in an area light. Now an area light is a rectangle of light. And this casts soft shadows as well. It's a very nice light and does create some very nice effects. So I'm going to put this area light just on the screen of my TV. Now you can see I can't see my orange line, it's pointing the opposite direction. So if I just draw that from the other corner, there we go, that swaps the line around there. And that will put an area light on the TV, and it's now shining into the room. We can see our soft shadows here shining from the area light. Now, we can't see the screen, so I don't need to put anything on the screen to give this an effect, but there are techniques to do that, and we'll be talking about these on later videos. And the last thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go into the colour of my area light that's selected at the moment, and if I go into the hue, saturation and brightness, I'm going to select a light blue there, and I'm just going to give my TV a light blue colour, and I'm going to choose a nice bright TV screen value there, sort of 300 candela. So if we go back outside now to our scene, we can now see the outline of the TV behind the window, and we've got that light in the room on the sofas, and we've also got the white light upstairs, so we're starting to get a little bit of life into our house now. Something else I just want to put in, I'm going to put in some exterior lights. Now, I'm going to use a different technique to put these in. Now, if I just close down Shaderlight for a minute, I've got a scene that I've created here, and it's just a very, very simple file that I've just modelled. It's nothing too complicated. And in here, I've put in an IES light. So if I go into my Shaderlight light editor, I can choose the IES web profile light from here. And I've just put this into the scene here. Now, when you select an IES web profile light, you need to browse for a file. Now, an IES web profile light is real-life lighting information from a manufacturer. So I've contacted a manufacturer, and they've given me an IES file for this exact light. So this is the light that's going to go into my scene. So they've given me this IES file, and the IES file, and we can see by this very small thumbnail up here, it actually shows the light how it would fall. So if I had a particular IES file for something like a downlighter, the shadows would be exactly as they would be from the downlighter, and the light would be affected like that. So I'm going to zoom in over here, and if I import, and if I go to my desktop here, I choose my LED, I'm going to import that lamp. And the good thing is about the Shaderlight lights is they can be attached to components as well. So we've now got this light inside this component. So we can see here as I zoom into this light, and we're getting quite a reflection on the floor, and we can see our bump map appearing on the floor there. So we've actually got texture in the wood, and we can see our bump map on the bricks. And as we said earlier, it's quite a light bump map. So as we did earlier, I'm going to go into the materials and select the brick there, and then open the Shaderlight materials editor, and our thumbnail updates. And I'm just going to increase the bump map, so just have a level of 2, and we can quickly see that we get heavier shadows in our bricks. So it creates a much more realistic sort of heavier finish on the brick. Okay, so now if I spin the model around a little bit there, I think the floor's still too reflective for these particular lights, but we'll have a look at those when we've put all of our lights in, because we wouldn't just have one light in the corner by the pool there. So the great thing about this with being a component, I have that selected. Obviously I can hold down Control and just create a copy there, and that brings the lighting information along with it. So I then select those two, and again hold down Control, and we'll just put these lights the other end of the pool. Okay, so now we've got our lights by the pool and sort of reflecting in our water, but we can now really see that our wood finish is a little bit too reflective at night time. So in the materials, simply pick that material there, and instead of the shiny finish, I'm just going to choose a matte finish. And there we go, we can see a completely different lighting effect falling on the wooden floor there. So I'm happy with that effect. So if we go back to our view that we saved earlier, and I'm going to expand that full screen. So we can see our lights by our pool now with our background, and we've now created that nighttime scene. And that would just take a minute or two to render. I hope you've enjoyed this online tutorial. If you do have any questions regarding anything that I've done, or if you are having any problems using Shaderlight for SketchUp, please don't hesitate to email support@artvps.com, and the team would be glad to help you. There are also online tutorial videos as well on our website, and that's www.shaderlight.com, and they are in the resources section. And there are videos there for the lights, the materials editor, and also Shaderlight in general. But also, if you have any ideas for future online seminars, webinars, or demos, please do not hesitate to email them across to support.